Good morning and welcome back to Football League World TV, the start of a new week, but we are continuing last week's series of The Fan's Voice. This morning, we've got a show dedicated to Barnsley as they embark on a return into League One. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and joining me, I'm delighted to announce that we've got Josh on the show at Barnsley Fan. Josh, how are you getting on this morning?
I'm good, Alfie. Nice to be here.
Good stuff, yeah. Plenty to talk about. All things the Tykes. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this morning. So any Barnsley fans joining us want to get themselves in the comments, please do. We'll get your thoughts up on the show. Although we're going to be looking ahead to the new season, which starts in under a week, it'd be rude not to sort of reflect on what's been going on at Barnsley over the last year, Josh, from the playoffs in 2020-21 to relegation in 21-22. There's so much to reflect on, but for you personally, what's been sort of the biggest disappointment and your thoughts on what's gone wrong at Oakwell?
Well, yeah, it was obviously a massive change from the season when we got into playoffs. I mean, we're 180 minutes away from Wembley and potentially the Premier League, and it all came crashing down the season after. I think the main reason for that, though, is the change of style. I think when Valerian Ismail came in, he knew what he got in terms of players. He knew we'd not got the most technical players at the club, and his style sort of went against that. It was very much, let's just knock it long and play as much football in the opposition half as possible and try not to defend anywhere near his own goal. And it worked for us. It was a relentless pressing game, and I think it really played to strength of having such a young core of a team. Like, you're going to have more legs than like a more experienced side who maybe just haven't got that little turn of pace anymore. And I think it massively worked for us. And then the season after Valerian went, we completely switched styles, which it seems like it was a boardroom decision due to like the lack of transfer incomings and the valuation that the club were putting on as players, because we weren't playing that. It wasn't like a nice brand to actually watch, but we were winning, so it didn't really matter to us necessarily as fans. As long as you're winning, you're not really that bothered how you're actually playing. And then went for a complete switch. Instead of playing long balls and a high press, when Marcus Shop came in, it was more structured and rigid in terms of defending, not much pressing. I think when it came to pressing, we press in our own half instead. We weren't getting far up the pitch, and we were trying to play out from the back. And the season in which we did get relegated, prior to when Daniel Stendhal was in charge, that was the problem, is that we didn't have the ability to play out from the back. Because when you're playing against some of these teams in the Championship, you're playing some all right Premier League players that could cut in the Prem, and they just sniff us out far too often. And it was just that big switching style, to be honest. It stops in its tracks. I think if we had got a manager in that were more progressive towards maybe playing a high press and obviously trying to integrate a little bit more shorter passing, a little bit more of a transitional phase rather than just going from one style completely and then going straight to another, and have a more progressive style, we probably won't be in this position now, to be honest.
Poya Asbaghi was the man that oversaw relegation. That came at the end of April. He was swiftly moved out of the club after that was confirmed with defeat at Huddersfield. Do you think that it was the right decision to get rid of Asbaghi when the club did?
It was a weird one because never really got that new manager bounce, but you could see that he was trying to build some form of foundation, just sort of trying to build from the back, but we completely lost all attacking threat in that time. I think played 10 or 11 without a win, and there were signs of improvement, but in that situation it needed to be a lot better than what it was. Like it'd have been nice maybe if it had been in pre-season and it had like the full season, we might have finished a little bit better. I still don't think we'd have stayed up, but there were little shoots of improvement every now and again, but it were never going to be something that works. I think it definitely needed something like, you needed a seasoned Championship, like a Neil Warnock, a seasoned Championship manager who knows what he needs in that league, knows the league inside out. And I think that's what we massively missed last season. We needed that sort of either just English football experience or Championship experience just to keep us in the league. Because I think when you go from proven managers like Poya Asbaghi, Marcus Shop, Valerian Ismail, you're going to get, every now and again, you're going to get one that works, you're going to get some that don't work, because it is a massive transition from playing, I think it was Sweden's under-21s manager, and then coming into a Championship. It just feels like a massive step in between the two. I can see the rationale in that we had a young side So to bring him in, obviously he's working in Sweden 21s. He knows how to work with younger players, but I think it was just the wrong person at the wrong time for me.
So on to the new era then. After plenty of speculation at the early part of the summer, Michael Duff has got the job, a growing reputation in the EFL for Duff. What are your thoughts on his appointment?
I'm very pleased, to be honest. I think it definitely something which the fans could get on side with, because obviously when you look at last season, we had Shop and Ash Baggio, relatively sort of unknowns in the league, and you never knew what you're going to get from them. It was kind of like more of an experimental appointment in living more in hope that they'd be successful. Whereas I think you bring Michael Duff in, who's got football experience with Cheltenham, and obviously played for Cheltenham and Burnley throughout his playing career. So I think it's going to be. We've got that experience now, which we needed, of someone who knows the league inside out. He understands what he needs, and obviously he took Cheltenham to the highest finish ever, and he's done it all on what you'd imagine was a relatively shoestring budget to do that. Who getting the most from the tools he had available. So I think moving into it, Barnes, I think it'd be like a very safe, progressive step for him, and I think he's someone that we need right now as a club. So I'm excited by his appointment. I think it's definitely brought a lot of confidence to fans this season, that we might actually have the ability to finish a lot higher than what we did at the end of last season, knowing that Michael Duff's in charge. I think it's given fans that little bit of a confidence boost that we've got the right man at the helm at the minute.
We're still in the thick of the summer transfer window. Then there's been a fair few additions made at Oakwell. 5 of those are under the age of 25 this summer. Do you think that's a particular tactic that Barnsley will continue to go with, even under Duff?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's because I know it's a lot of like Excel sheet kind of database signings which were made, and I think last season we moved away from that when Paul Conway oversaw the transfers, and there's been 2 direct correlations between Paul Conway being in charge of recruitment and 2 poor seasons. We had the season we stayed up on the last day, and then we had obviously last year as well, and both times is when he's overseen the transfer windows. And I think from what rumours we've heard around the club is that he deviated away from it. So it would seem that the Excel sheet isn't really the issue, or that data approach isn't really the issue. And I can see the idea in it as well, in that you bring in someone under 25, they play for a few years, you sell them on for a profit and a value. The only problem is when you do that, and because we've had it in the past where obviously Alex Mowat left on a free, where if we'd have got him tied down to another contract, we could have commanded a massive fee for him, which it's things like that which are slipping through the net. It's probably something we're going to suffer from this season with Callum Stiles, because I think he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And had he got 2-3 years left and we got relegated, then that was command a decent fee for him, which it's got swings and roundabouts. But I think it's the right way to go about it, is the way in which we are bringing young players, and I think it definitely lends itself a lot better to be more successful in League One than it does a Championship, because you're getting players and it's just not as intense. It's difficult to get out of, but at the same time you get that bedding in, you get to get that experience, and not be punished for every single mistake, which you kind of do in the Championship. I think it's a very cutthroat league, and obviously when you've got Mitrovic, who scored 45 goals a season. I think he scored more than we did last season. Like, it's a cutthroat league, whereas I think League One's a lot more of a bedding in season for us to build that platform. But it definitely needs to come with a bit with balance. Like, it's fine and well and good having these young players in, but over the last few years we've been crying out for a more experienced head inside.
An experienced head then in James Norwood. He's been recruited, sort of the exception to the rule at the club. He's 31 years old, but 26 goals across 3 League One seasons with Ipswich recently. Are you happy with his signing?
Yeah, I think definitely from that experience aspect, because the seasons in which the season when we stayed up on the last day, we brought in Michael Solbar, I think at the time was 29 or 30, and he just seemed to be sort of the glue that held us together. And then obviously in that season where we finished in the playoffs, he seemed to be sort of the dressing room leader type of character that that we needed at the time. So hopefully James Norwood can slot into that role. I mean, he seems quite a character early doors from like just quick interviews we've seen with him and stuff. He seems like he's going to be that kind of character. So I think it is someone that you just need to lean on, and they're probably just as valuable off the pitch as they are on the pitch for taking the young players under the wing and things like that. So I think that's something that we definitely missed last season, because game management last year was poor. We'd be in a decent position last 10 minutes, we'd be winning 1-0, and it'd just be oof it and it goes anywhere and let's see what happens and try and get up the pitch. Whereas I think if we had someone more experienced, it'd be let's slow the game down. Once it's gone out of play, let's take all the sting out of it. And we just didn't have that gamesmanship. Whereas I think when you've got the more experienced players who've played X amount of games, they know exactly how to handle certain situations. And he's got a decent scoring record at Ipswich. I mean, 26 over 3 seasons. It's not world beating, but I think what he can bring to the side in terms of experience will be much more valuable than necessarily his goal record and things like that. But I think it's definitely a sign in which you can see that the new board who've taken over the summer, they've seen where the gaps are and they're starting to plug them slowly but surely. So I think it is a first step in sort of a direction of we're going to have a mix of the under 25s and also a couple of more experienced heads dotted in around the side.
With the incomings, there've been outgoings as well. Carlton Morrison, Cauley Woodrow, they've headed to Luton. Callum Britton recently, in the last couple of days, has moved to Blackburn. Was it inevitable that you were going to lose sort of players of that ilk?
Yeah, definitely. I think we kind of played a bit of a dangerous game, because when the new board did take over, they came out and openly said that we need to cover a loss of £7 or £8 million, and it will be through player sales, which I think it's great for the transparency from a fan perspective of that they're sort of preparing us that, yeah, look, there's going to be a few solid first team players who are going to command a fee that we're going to have to ship away this summer transfer window. But also at the same time, I think it's probably brought clubs in to be like, right, we can go in and sort of lowball an offer here, because we know they need to make up this drop in income, and we can potentially get some players on a bit of a cheap way. So I think it's been good and bad in terms of great for fan engagement and fan transparency, but at the same time, I think it probably has cost us in terms of actual value we've got for his players, because there's been clubs lurking around and it feels like they've been swarming around as better players. And as you said, I think Woodrow going was inevitable, because I feel like last season there were just times where there were a bit of disconnect between him and the fans, and I think as the captain, it probably wore on him a little bit, because I did feel quite sorry for him, to be honest, because he spent most of his season on the edge of his own 18-yard box trying to drag the team up the pitch, and I don't think he's that kind of player. He plays at his best when he's in the opposition box trying to poach, and we never played to his strengths over the last 2-3 seasons, to be honest. So I can see why he wants to move on. He probably thought best for all parties. Carlton Morris was the one that I thought we could try and keep hold of this summer, but it was kind of a shame to lose him. I think we could have built a side, especially in League One, because he was such a big presence. He'd press all day, he'd run the channels if he needed to. It was kind of the complete package, similar to when we went down last time and bounced straight back up when we had Kiefer Moore. It was just a big target man, and it worked perfect. Kiefer Moore worked perfectly in that league alongside Woodrow. And I think if we had kept Morris and brought in someone that's a bit of a fox in the box or can play off a big man, then I think we would have a much better chance of going straight back up this season. So I think Morris was kind of the big loss. Callum Britton seemed to divide opinion across the fan base, because I think he played something like 82, 83 games, never scored, and I think he only got 3 or 4 assists over 2 years, which in that right wing back role you kind of expect a little bit more from him in essence. But obviously on his first pre-season game for Blackburn, he got an assist, which he just knew it was going to happen, really.
It all kicks off then this coming weekend. The League One season begins. Plymouth away, Cheltenham at home, Derby away, Bristol Rovers and Wycombe at home, Ipswich away and Lincoln at home. They're Barnsley's first 7 fixtures, which see them through into September. A really busy first month for Michael Duff. What do you think's a successful points return from that sort of opening burst of fixtures?
I think it's good in a way that we've got Plymouth and Derby and Wycombe and Ipswich, which are all they're all going to be solid sides this season. I think it will quite early show where we're going to finish this season and where the gaps still lie, and hopefully we've still got time to go and plug them gaps in the first opening games as the transfer window is still open. So I think it's a tough start, especially when you've got Plymouth in there. They're always a solid side. Derby have signed a few championship quality players, to be honest with Hurrian, Corey Smith, Thomas Barker using as well. They've got and Dave McGoldrick. They've got championship quality players in their side. So I think that'll be a good test. And then you've got Wickham, who are just a thoroughbred top six side in League One. So I think that's going to be a good grounding for us to actually see where we are in terms of signings this season and how this season might actually pan out. I think looking at that first 7, I'll be aiming for 10 to 12 points, in and around mid-table, kind of outside the playoffs. I think the sides we need to be beating is Cheltenham, Bristol Rovers and Lincoln. I think they're 3 which I'd expect us to win. I think the others, I think it's on a flip of a coin, to be honest, if we'd win, lose or draw against Ipswich, Wickham, Derby and Plymouth. So it's going to be interesting, but I think it's definitely a solid first 7 games to actually see where we'll stand in this league.
Got a comment in from Scott Hargreaves. I'm presuming that he's a Burnley fan. Duff man will do good for you, legend at Burnley. So a bit of confidence there. Finally then, Josh, let's just get your prediction for the season. Where can you see Barnsley finishing in 2022-23? Do you think it's realistic that Duff can take you straight back into the Championship?
I think it'd be a tall ask, and I think it'd definitely do him the world of good if he did, just for his CV to take us back up. Because I think last time we came back down, we kept the core of the team together, and we sort of started off on a brand new slate with Stendhal with players that were sort of in that crossover phase of being too good for League One and probably just not good enough for the Championship. So I think we were perfect. Whereas this season, we've have to ship out all those better players, the Michael Ellicks, the Callum Styles. They'll probably leave at some point during the window, who are probably our better players. And obviously Woodrow, Morris and Britain have already gone. So I think if we get adequate replacements in, we should be all right. I mean, looking so far in pre-season, we've looked all right. We've looked solid at the back, but it's goals that are going to be the big issue, because I think at the moment we've got Devante Cole, Aaron Layer-Aseka leading the line, and last season they weren't even sort of that sense that you think, oh, these could go and score double figures in Championship. And I think going back down to League One probably is more their level, but I think at the same time their confidence will be shot. So it's going to be interesting to see where the goals actually come from. I think if we do sign a goal scorer between now and then, between the end of the window, then I think we probably could push towards the playoffs. But I think for me, it's probably too much of a transition season in terms of Duff coming in and too much instability in terms of trying to rebuild the squad as well. So I think I'd take anything in the top half, top half, 10th, and then maybe if we do sign that goal scorer, then I'll be much more confident of trying to scrape the top 6.
That concludes Football League World TV's look at Barnsley for the upcoming season. Thanks to Josh for joining me. I'll give you an opportunity to plug what you'll be doing in the upcoming season, Josh.
Yeah, so I'm part of a channel called Red All Over. We do match day vlogs from time to time, and then there's a weekly video podcast which we do discussing the previous games and anything that's happening that week, which as a Barnsley fan has been a lot this summer so far, so we've not really had any time off yet. So we do that, and then we also do instant reactions after every home game as well. So yeah,
plenty to look out for. Make sure you check that out. Some really good content going up on the channel. Football League World TV will be back later in the day. We're going to be looking at Ipswich Town and Derby County, 2 of Barnsley's League One rivals for this coming season, and we're going to be overviewing some of the latest transfer news right across the AFL at 4 p.m. So plenty to tune into on Football League World TV throughout the Monday, and plenty coming up during the week as well. So make sure you tune into that. But between now and then, take care.